Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. And we're going to head a little farther south for today's edition of the Netherton Show Coaches Caravan as we bebop all around the state of Louisiana, try to talk to all the Division I head coaches. And we're headed down to a team that came up to Shreveport last year, ended their season in the Independence Bowl. It is the Ragin Cajuns, and their head coach, Michael Desormeaux, joins us. Coach, first of all, how are you? Camp's underway. We're getting close to the season. How you feeling?
I'm great, man. Camp, we actually wrapped up camp with school starting today.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapped up camp last night and, kind of start getting the transition into, our in-season schedule and in-season processes a little bit here.
It is here. It's crazy to consider. The offseason felt like it lasted forever and went by in the blink of an eye. But I want to start with the end of last season because you guys did get to come up here to the Independence Bowl. You faced Houston, tough game. It was a very physical matchup. Ultimately, Houston ended up getting the better of you. But what was that like? Tell me about the trip to an in-state bowl game where your fans really get to travel, really get to be a part of it. It was as cold as I've ever been in my entire life, but it was still a heck of a lot of fun. Tell me about being able to travel and play a bowl game in your state.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience for our players and for our team. The cities of Shreveport and Bossier did a great job of making us feel like they wanted us up there, really rolling out the red carpet, having a great set of events planned for our players, for our wives, for our coaches. The hospitality was second to none. I was disappointed the weather was so bad.
No.
Like between us and Houston, we'd had a really, really good crowd there. But man, it was a great matchup and a great opportunity. We got to play, a really tough Houston team that that was one of our 4 losses in the final few minutes of the game. But it was a good ending in a sense that our kids, when our backs were against the wall, we found a way to perform well enough to get to a bowl game. Certainly that's not the standard that we expect, and we want more than that. But I don't think you could ask more from a bowl experience than what the Independence Bowl gave us in Shreveport. And I mean that wholeheartedly. That was really a lot of fun for us, and we'd love to go back. Hopefully the conditions are a little bit better outside next time.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I was inside. I do PA for the bowl, and I was indoors and still frozen solid. It was pretty brutal in there, to say the least. I will say this though. The one good part about being the PA announcer for the Independence Bowl when you guys come up is your pronunciation guide is one of the best in the entire world. Not just because it's good and that they have good phonetic spellings, but just because of the kids that you've got on your team. Being a Louisiana kid, it's a little easier for me, but still, your pronunciation guide is a hell of a thing, Coach.
Yeah, people from outside the state, I think, have a little bit more trouble with it. So we got to detail that thing up, and you know how it is in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
You got Trahans and Trahans and Desormeaux and Desormeaux, and you got everything in between. So there are some Richards out there, and not just Richard.
Yep.
So we got to kind of circle around that a little bit. But no, man, it kind of makes us unique, and we're fortunate we're in a great state where you got a lot of good players, so we get to sign a lot of local talent, and I think that just kind of adds to the culture and to the flavor of who we are a little bit. You
mentioned some close losses last year, and I know broadcasters, anyway, are of a couple of minds. Either it's a sign that your team's not any good, or it's a sign that your team's really close. And I know coaches usually think we're on the really close terms of things. You got a lot of guys coming back with experience off of that season. I know you have to feel pretty optimistic about that, because if 1 or 2 of those games go the other way, you're looking at an 8-win season, a 9-win season, that kind of thing. So I know for y'all, it has to be pretty optimistic going into this season.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We're really excited about the team that we've got coming back. It's a lot of fun for our coaching staff because we still have quite a few young players. There's only 10 seniors this year. It's a lot of juniors and sophomores, but it's a lot of guys that have played. And last year at this time, we knew we had some talented younger players, but there's not a lot of substitute for game experience, and sometimes I think the inexperience showed. Last year we had a new first-time play caller on defense, first-time play caller on offense with myself. Our special teams coordinator is new, so we had a lot of new things to work through, and certainly I think we've kind of settled in a groove here a little bit better. And I kind of go back to it. Last year I think when we got to the second half of the year, we kind of started to figure out who we were a little bit. Some of those young guys played a little bit better in critical time, and we found a way to win some of those games. But our league really, really seems to come down every year to the team that really finds a way to win the close games. Last year the top two teams in our division were 6-1 in one possession games and 6-2. The year before we're 7-0. Before that we're 7-1. So it's that's just kind of what it comes down to in this league. And I certainly think that the experience, not just for the players but for all of us, is going to pay off in the second year around. And we're excited about the opportunity to go out there and get back on the field and kind of hopefully get that taste out of our mouth a little bit last year.
Talking to Michael Desormeaux, head coach of the Ragin Cajuns. All right, so before we get on the field, I want to talk about a couple of things off the field, at least in terms of your staff, because you brought in an old friend of mine, but you also brought in a kid whose name is really well known here in the Shreveport area, in Jamarie Rasco. Kind of give me an idea of how that came about, how he ends up on the staff for you guys, because he was an Evangel product up here, a legend, and then, had a nice career in the NFL. How does he end up on your staff, and kind of what do you have him doing?
So Rasco has been just an incredible asset for us. He is such a good mentor for these young men. He's got great perspective on it from the player side, having played at all levels. From the coaching side of it, and he really he pours into these kids every day. And I got to say, I couldn't imagine not having him here. So he's on our strength staff. He's an assistant strength and conditioning coach, and he works more with the bigs in the weight room, the O-line, D-line. But, having a resource like him, especially in the summer, we're so limited on what we can do with the kids,
sure,
how much time we get to spend with them as position coaches. To have a guy like him around that's played at the highest level, certainly I knew him as a player in high school and in college, so his body of work spoke for itself. But the way it came about, our head strength coach, Connor Neighbors, played at LSU with Rasco.
Okay.
So they were teammates, a ton of mutual respect between the two of those guys. And, whenever I hired Connor at the end of, 21, I was like, hey, let's put together the best strength staff that we can get. And, he's like, look, I really want to hire, Jamarie Rasco. He goes, I just don't see any type of way where he wouldn't be, a perfect fit for us. And I agreed. He was with us the year before as a off the field coach with the defensive line. And I just saw the way the kids gravitated to him. And I said, well, if we can increase his role and have him around our kids, more often, then I don't see how that could be a bad thing. And it hasn't been, man. That guy is a rock star, man. He's going to have a great career in coaching, whether it ends up being as a position coach or he stays in the strength and conditioning world. I mean, the sky's the limit for him, and we're fortunate to have him here.
The other guy on your staff that I know is Matt Viator, who was at McNeese forever and knew him from there, then was at ULM, has kind of bounced around since then. V is one of my favorite people. And if you get a chance, ask him about the time that Larry the Cable Guy got to speak to his team before McNeese played Nebraska, because I actually set that up for him, and they almost beat Nebraska up there. And Larry the Cable Guy is actually texting me during the game saying, if word ever gets out that I talked to McNeese and then they came in and beat us at our place, he's a huge Nebraska guy and he lives there.
Yeah.
And he said, if word ever gets out that I talked to McNeese and they came in and won this game, he's like, I'm done for at Nebraska. Like, they'll never have me back. And I said, we'll just try to keep it under wraps. But yeah, if you get a chance, ask V about Larry the Cable Guy talking to the Cowboys before the game. It was apparently a lot of fun. They had a great time with it.
Well, I will for sure, but Matt Viator is one of the critical pieces of this thing for us. And for me, being a young first-time head coach in college football, having him in that room with me every day, he's got a lifetime of experiences that I'm fortunate enough to get his input on things, and that's been a blessing for me.
No doubt. Let's talk about quarterbacks. You played a lot of guys last year. Get some guys back. Kind of give me an idea of how that quarterback battle's shaping out.
Yeah, last year, Ben coming out of camp, we weren't really exactly sure between Ben and Chandler, and played them both a little bit early. Chandler was a starter, and Ben would play a couple series a game, and Chandler kind of got dinged up a little bit, kind of towards kind of the middle beginning game 4, and then Ben took over, and whenever Ben took over, really kind of became the catalyst for us playing a little bit better on offense, and so you go through the season, you expect things are going really good. He gets hurt in practice, actually, of all things. So then, you're kind of back to ground zero, and Chandler came back and played great. He was healthy at that point, played really, really well. We got to play a true freshman, Deion Chris, a little bit last year in the bowl game. Got to play the whole second half because Chandler was banged up again. And, you got 3 guys that have some playing experience, which has been phenomenal for us, that have played really well. But Ben being completely healthy this year, just his leadership qualities for us and the way that what he means to this team, the way he carries himself, all 3 of those guys are very talented. But that's, whenever you got 3 talented guys, you look for kind of what can separate them a little bit. And Ben's leadership and competitive spirit, I think, is what separates him. So, he's going to be the guy going into it week 1. And Chandler and Deion, we're gonna encourage those guys to continue to compete every day because both of them are really, they're guys that are more than capable. So, we have, I think the quarterback room, that might be the best room, that we have in our program. It's just unfortunate, one of them really gets to play. So,
Right.
We're very fortunate to have those 3 guys, on top of being great competitors and really talented players. They are phenomenal humans, man, and they go in there every day and they pull for each other, they help each other, they work for each other, and it's a pretty special group, really, that I'm fortunate to get to work with every day.
I tried to encourage when Northwestern State back in 2015 had 4 quarterbacks that they listed as number 1 on the depth chart. And I tried to get them to run the old Notre Dame box and just put them all back there at the same time. Have you ever thought about just running all 3 QBs out there at the same time, just seeing what happens?
I have not.
Okay,
no,
okay. Just think about it. Put it in your back pocket if you need a little trick play. Just go flag football style, right? Where you just throw it horizontally until someone gets open.
Well, I'm gonna write that down.
Okay.
I might
Rogers, he's currently writing down dumb idea from the guy in Shreveport. Don't call back. Hey, Coach, give us kind of the 10,000-foot view of the offense. Who are some of the guys that you're looking forward to seeing out there, and some names that are going to pop for us?
So this year the big thing is our offensive line is much improved from last year. Those guys have a year in it together. We've been a little bit healthier this year, which has been huge. That running back group has really, really turned the corner with Draylon Washington and Terrence Williams and Jacob Cabody and Zylan Perry. You got 4 guys that really to this point have played great. The true freshman Bill Davis is going to be really good, but his time's probably coming a little bit down the road. While he's still learning the protections and things like that. It's kind of funny. Last year we were really, really veteran at receiver. Felt like going in the year, hey, look, we might not be great on the O-line, with some issues that we've had. Got a new quarterback, got these young running backs, but, the receiving group should be really solid. Well, you fast forward a year and you graduate some guys, you got a couple guys that move on, and it's like, well, now the receiver group gets kind of flipped a little bit. So, we really expect Peter LeBlanc, Jake Bernard, Neil Johnson to carry the load as veteran players who've played a lot. But, man, they got some good young ones in that group that I can't wait to really see what they do under the lights. In fall camp, they've been impressive so far. Terrence Carter is a freshman tight end who's really got a lot of upside for us in the pass game and the run game. At receiver, Rob Williams is a sophomore who's been here for a few years. He's really dynamic. a guy that we kind of just kept waiting for it to click for a little bit, and it has throughout camp. You add, Tavion Smith in the mix there. He's a junior college transfer. We've recruited for a couple years now. And then Charles Robertson, the redshirt freshman from Zachary, that's come to life a little bit, showed some signs last fall, while he was redshirting. Jaden Johnson's the same way. Another redshirt freshman. So there's a couple of those young guys that you're like, man, I can't wait to see what they do under the lights. But, you have to depend on the older guys who have made those plays throughout their career to kind of carry the load until you figure out what are the next tier, the second and third team guys that can go out there and make plays for you and deserve to be on the field. So it's it's fun. Last year we were able to mix it up, run and pass a little bit more maybe than we had in the past, and we want to continue to do that. And I think with a much improved group on the O-line and at running back, I think we'll be able to run it more effectively, which certainly is going to help us in every aspect of what we're trying to do on offense.
Give us an idea of what the defense is going to look like.
So defense, you got a really young secondary. A lot of sophomores, a lot of juniors that have played quite a bit. On the back end, particularly at safety, we're long and fast and athletic. Those guys fly around. They're really disruptive. They've really grown in their communication skills on the back end, which is incredibly important. At linebacker, we lost your two starters last year, but the guys that are coming back, KC Osai was practically a co-starter, played 50-50. Jasper Williams is a senior who's played quite a bit in his career. It's time for him to go. Kendra Gant is a really talented player who's missed some time with injuries. Caleb Edwards is a true sophomore who last year played a bunch on teams, played quite a bit on defense. So really like that group at inside backer. On the D-line, we lost some really good players. You lost Zion Hill. You lost Andre Jones. But that group, that D-line group is really fun because it's kind of, I kind of told our team the other day, we're kind of the no-names right now. We lost a bunch of guys that played here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we've got some really talented kids coming up. And that D-line group, I don't know if you replace Zion Hill one-for-one,
Right.
That guy, his career was phenomenal here. But you got to kind of spread the load. You kind of do it with strength in numbers. And I think we've got a more solid group up front all the way around, from top to bottom than maybe last year was a little top-heavy. But Antoine Bayless, who transferred in here, has been really, really good for us. Sonny Hazard and Marcus Weiser have played great in the middle. Jordan Lawson came on last year and had a really big year. Mason Northeast, he sat behind Zion for 2 years and played a backup role. It's time for him. He's had a really good camp in spring. And then Nigel McGriff, this is his third year in the program. So for him, it's all starting to click a little bit, and got a couple young guys, some freshmen out of high school that might play a little bit this year, that we're really excited about. So that group, I think, it's kind of a strength in numbers type deal there, and then on the edge at outside backer, Cam Whitfield's played quite a bit for us. Cam George is coming along pretty good. We added Trey Fight to the mix, who, he's done some really good things for us athletically. So, defensively, again, like I said, it's kind of, it's a lot of guys that maybe it's their first time starting, but we're returning 30 guys that have played significant snaps on defense last year. So, maybe you got some new starters in there, but it's a lot of the same old faces that have played quite a bit.
Sure, and that certainly helps. Last couple things for you, Coach. Number one, you play Northwestern State to start the season, which obviously means something to me as the voice of the Demons, but you also had a kid with Northwestern State lineage in John Stevens Jr. on your team. He went to the Dallas Cowboys. He's converting to tight end, unfortunately, tore his ACL, so he's going to be out for the season. But I'm kind of curious about, a kid with that kind of a journey, TCU to you guys, and then on up into to the Cowboys, where he was having a really nice preseason so far. And you hate to see that, but kind of a cool sort of Louisiana story, right? A kid that was from Logansport, whose dad was at Northwestern, who, made it to the Cowboys. I mean, a lot of just great ties with that kid.
There's no doubt, and John came here, and it was obvious early on, just what type of person John was, man. He came here with a smile on his face every single day. Physically, he's an absolute specimen. And he's had good moments for us here. I am not shocked at all that he got an opportunity to play in the NFL because of, the play history he's had here. And really, there's a certain thing that's called a look test, and he passes that in every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
The transition to tight end is hard, and to see him have the success that he's had at that position is just, that's phenomenal. Because it's not easy to do. I did shoot him a text yesterday. I found out yesterday that he got banged up, and I hadn't heard back from him. But, if nothing else, hopefully for him now, he knows he belongs there. He knows that he's got a niche, and he's played really well in that tight end position. And, hopefully that just kind of aids him, through his recovery, because, that's difficult. That's a difficult pill to swallow at times, like to think, man, I was making all this progress and then this happened. So, I know John is very grounded. He's got a strong faith, and he believes there's a plan for him. And, I just hope for him he can come back completely healthy and really get back, pick up where he left off. Because, all the reports we were getting, he was working on that 53-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, ain't many. There's 53 per team. There's not a whole lot that get to do it. So that says a lot about him.
Absolutely. Final thing, Coach, playing an in-state opponent, starting the season with Northwestern State. What's your mindset on that? A lot of these schedules are set well in advance, but how do you feel about, being able to sprinkle, even if it's an FCS opponent, being able to sprinkle in a Southeastern or a McNeese or a Northwestern State within your schedule every few years?
I would like to play an in-state team every year.
Yeah.
I just think it's silly, for the way that college football works now, where, some of these, an FCS team will travel across the country to go play. I don't know, maybe it's not a Sun Belt school, maybe it's a MAC school. It just doesn't make sense. It saves money and it creates money because it puts a lot of people in the stands. I love doing it. I think it's a great thing. I say it all the time. There's so many good players in this area that, they've got good football teams. Last year, Southeastern, that was, I don't know, it ended up being a 10-point game or 14-point game, but it was a good football game.
Mm-hmm.
I expect Northwestern State to come in here, and do the same thing and play really well. I think it's cool because our kids know each other, coaching staffs, we're familiar with each other. The D-line coach there this year, Coach Gistorb, was with us last year as the quality control. So there's so many paths that cross. I just think it's a good thing all the way around, and for us, we're excited to host them over here. Like I said, it's just a quick trip right down I-49, and hopefully they'll bring a bunch of people. Our fans typically get really excited from the old Southland days whenever we were all in it together. So to me, it's a win-win all the way around. I think it's, first week of college football, 2 in-state teams playing. I just think that's a fun thing for the state, for our fans, and for our kids.
Yeah, hard to get any better than that. And obviously, I told you before we got on the air that I'm a big believer when I travel. We may not win the game, but we're going to win the road trip. And I can promise you, with the food y'all got in Lafayette, we're going to win the road trip that week, Coach. I can promise you that.
Well, if you come here and you leave hungry, that's your fault.
Yeah.
So I would say you're right.
Yeah. Coach, always thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it. Best of luck to you guys this year.
Thank you all for having me.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Michael Desormeaux, head coach of the Ragin Cajuns down in Lafayette.